I started
Hey,
talking to my boss.
congrats.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I started talking to my boss, and it's interesting because this job is not what you guys are thinking. It's, I'm not working for the league or a team. But this is in a way better for me where I am right now, because if I worked for a team or the league, I kind of would be restricted in what I could do and who I could talk to and what I could talk about. And I'd have to be, like promoting that org or whatever. And so now I will announce, because the audio is fixed, that I accepted a job at G Fuel Energy as a partnership manager. And it's pretty dope. I know you guys are clapping in the chat, but it's a remote job with a salary that helps me take care of my family, but it's a remote job which allows me to work from here. I can go to events if I want to, and travel. Of course, that'll help me with my job. And to sum it up in a short way, and you guys can go watch the YouTube video where I talk more about the job. I'm going to manage a portfolio of content creators and influencers and people that are sponsored by G Fuel. I also get to help find new people and bring them into the fold. G Fuel was the first organization that gave a break to me and goalie when we were doing the sticks back in the day. And I didn't create content. I wasn't a pro player. I didn't create like gaming content. I talked about esports, and I wasn't a pro player. I didn't work for MLG or any organization. I just talked about what I loved, which was Call of Duty esports, and G Fuel wanted to get with that, and they lined up with us. I know, Attach, I'm pretty sure you've been sponsored back in the past by G Fuel when you're a part of Faze and stuff like that. And so I'm excited for this opportunity. I'm excited to walk out my hashtag Let's Grow and help people do what they do better, because that's not really a part of my job, but I get to do it because I'm engaging with influencers. And if I can give them some tips and stuff like that and help them out, I would love to. But the biggest thing is that it allows me to stay in the gaming world. And so I'm excited, guys. And thank you for all the congrats in the chat, and that I'm going to get on Twitter when I post this video in a minute. I'm just really excited. And here's the cool thing I'll close with, and I'll pass to Icon to introduce himself and Attach. But this was not a result of what I'm going through right now in my life. My boss let me know this morning after hiring me. He was like, "Hey, I didn't know everything that was going on in your life. Somebody just told me about it." He's like, "I somehow missed that." He's like, "But look at that timing. Isn't that timing interesting?" And I was like, timing is everything, dude. I was like, there's so many other jobs that I've been mad I couldn't get. And now to land one that was just based on my merit, based on my resume, my passion for gaming. And so I'm excited about the opportunity. And that's me. I'm a partnership manager at G Fuel. And I make content on YouTube and do this podcast every Monday at 7:30 Eastern. All right, I'll pass it over to you, Icon.
That's super cool, man. First, before I get into all the other stuff, Kingdom, I just want to say congrats, man. I'm super happy for you.
Very much.
That's really awesome to see. So yeah, my name is Icon Nation. You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff. But essentially what I do is I just take competitive gameplays and I just break them down. So I'll put a map up on screen. I'll draw what I'm seeing. I'll try to explain exactly what's happening, because I quickly realized when Call of Duty made the switch from 4v4 to 5v5, that everything got really hectic really fast. And like for the general fan, it was kind of hard to see. So I'll just be watching a gameplay and I'll stop it and I'll be like, all right, let's just take a step back. Let's just look at this, break it down so that people can see what's actually happening. So that's what I do. That's my background. That's where I come from. Today, we are joined by Attach. Attach, welcome. I'll just do a real quick bio and then I'll let you say a word or two. But obviously, pro player for the New York Subliners, SMG role. Some quick notables, obviously 2015 world champ as part of Denial. And there's a gazillion things I could list. And actually, when I was reading through the COD wiki today, this is something that kind of caught my mind, is that I competed at 3 or 4 events way back in the day. And as I was looking, so I live outside of Cleveland. So back in 2014, I saw that you placed 5th, 6th at MLG Columbus during Advanced Warfare. And I was actually there. So actually that was the last event that I competed at. And we won one match, and then we got beat by Noble Esports, which was Killa and Study and those dudes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I thought that was kind of cool, a little blast from the past 5-6 years ago. But Attach, man, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me. Kingdom, first off, congratulations on signing with G Fuel. I
Thank
mean,
you very much,
I've
bro.
been watching your videos since probably when you started uploading Black Ops 2 Ghost Days. I remember you
Yeah.
had like a story time thing that I would watch all the time, and
The Kingdom story. Yep.
yeah, the Kingdom story. I would watch that all the time, and first off, G Fuel, they have a lot of great people, great company, and then yourself. You couldn't be. I think that's like the perfect spot for you to be in with the partnerships and just helping people out, because I feel that's all you've been doing since you got into the space is just helping people, and
Yeah.
like you've helped me, like you've helped so many people that you probably don't even know how many people you've helped. So the fact that you now get some people to super maxes with G Fuel and change their careers is great. But I'm happy for you, G Fuel, and that partnership. You guys are gonna do great. So
Thank you so much,
congratulations
bro.
once again.
Appreciate it.
And it's gonna be fun. I'm excited for you.
All right. Thanks, man. All right. So something we do for guests that come on the show is this part called Fast Five, where basically I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and I'm not going to ask them all rapidly. And all I want you to do is answer as quickly as you can, which means what comes to mind when I ask the question. Don't spend too much time thinking about it, and answer as best you can. They're in no particular order. All right. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. The first question is, what is what is your best COD esports memory outside of champs?
Best COD esports memory outside of champs would have to probably be running through the artillery versus opting in the finals, because that's just the fact that it won esports player of the year is like insane to me. Because when I was like when I did it, I literally was just like, my teammates were like, oh, you probably like, it's a 1v3, so it's like it's already an unfavorable situation.
Yeah.
My teammate called artillery over there, and I was literally, they're like, oh, you probably have to run through that. I was like, yeah, fuck it. And then I literally just ran through it, got the 2-piece, and then won the 1v1. And if I didn't do that, we would have lost that series. If a lot of things didn't happen in that series, we would have lost it. But the COD gods wanted us to win that day, so that was
Clayster talked on Eavesdrop a while back about how storylines are created in those moments. You know what I'm saying? Like in those moments where a play actually makes a difference in a tournament, like one play. And that, of course, is etched into the memory of all of us that were watching. And if it was the YouTube era, I would have rewound, like, because now on YouTube, if I'm watching on my phone, I can just double tap if I want to see a play over and over again and then fast forward to catch up. I do it all the time. That's one of the good things about it be us broadcasting on YouTube now.
Yeah,
but
no, I actually really like YouTube now.
Number 2 question. What is the perfect map, SMG, and AR? From COD.
Raid in Black Ops 2.
Yes.
The MSMC in Black Ops 2, and the perfect AR. It's not gonna be Black Ops 2. It's not gonna be Black Ops 2.
Okay.
The perfect AR would probably be. I really like the Black Ops 3 M8. Yeah, I like that gun a lot.
Okay, I didn't see that one coming. Black Ops 3 M8. Raid, I always put at the top of my list. People they say that, what do you mean Raid? How can Raid? Like, there's something about playing Search on Raid. There's so many memorable plays even on that map from multiple players. I remember, wasn't it Rambo that shot a...
wasn't it Clayster?
It was Clayster. Shot
Clayster shot the arrow. The
cross and blew up the van?
Yeah.
Oh, that was ridiculous. See, I remember it.
I remember that. I remember Clay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Rambo's a great guy. He missed Ray.
Yeah, he's amazing. So here's the thing. So that leads actually into my next question. Who is your COD father?
My COD father? This is a tough one. It would probably have to be replays, to be honest, just because after Rise, he really wanted to pick me up. So I'd probably have to be, he was like my other transition into, I would say, a top level pro team. Because when I was on Rise, I would say we were like an average level pro team. We got 4th once, then we placed like 8th, so we were kind of just average. But then once I got on Denial, we were instantly like pretty much a top 3 team. And so I'd probably have to say replays.
Do you remember his content? His YouTube content?
Like
replays.
When he was Faze replays in like Black Ops 2?
Yeah, he actually he did good. That's where I saw his potential as a coach, honestly.
Yeah.
Because he talked about what to do around the map and how, and like, I caught myself trying to make up a little fake team and having fun on Black Ops 2 and playing Kingdom 8s and stuff like that. I just wanted to beat goalie. And so back then, I remember watching replays videos, and when I did my best competitive vid series, I would call out some of his content because I really liked what he did. And for those of you guys that don't know, he's talking about Crowder now. Yep. If you don't know that's replays from then. All right, next question. You said that you watched this event a little bit of it there, present, some of it from a distance. From a analytical standpoint, as a player, as a pro player, what do you actually watch for when you're watching your competition play each other?
How teams push to break a hill, what they do when they get a setup on a hill, S&D strategies for sure. And then same things for Dom, how they hold and how they push really. And then looking for those little like nerd spots people will use. People will find like these really weird spots that give you a slight advantage that people don't often look at or can just help you in any way. And looking for those little random spots that can help you get that extra kill or the extra 2-piece.
Is it true that Clayster, I always hear him like he was one of those nerds that at the beginning of a game, he always spends a lot of time finding nerd spots. Did he do that when you were his teammate?
Yeah, he definitely found like a bunch. Like I remember probably the most famous one would have to be in the Black Ops 3, the tree thing where we got forfeited on that snow map. Parasite forfeited us, his team Complexity in the league match.
Oh, I remember that.
And then what was that? He was like, "Is this an unintended line of sight? Is this like?" He just kept saying that over and over. So I would definitely say Clay does because yeah, he's definitely a weirdo when it comes to like in-game stuff. He usually likes to do a lot of like little weird stuff and have some fun. And he always likes to use like the different guns that aren't like the most common ones, I would say. So Clay definitely likes to get a little creative with all those things.
Yeah, Clay, it's cool to see someone at that level because those nerd spots matter.
Oh, they definitely do.
They
I mean,
absolutely
they do.
matter.
They can benefit you and the team. It's like, why not do it? So it's definitely smart.
Here's the last question, maybe the most difficult. What is the number one thing your team needs to fix?
Number one thing our team needs to fix is playing together. Because right now, like our team, like the fact that we're even winning maps sometimes in series is kind of surprising one series is kind of surprising because we are so off pace right now. Like we get all the kills, put ourselves in great positions, and then we do like the hard part and then literally mess up on the easy part because we just don't want to either communicate or work together. It's like we want to do that, but we don't. That's not like our first instinct to do. So just getting on the same page, and I think we could easily win events.
It seems though like you guys have good chemistry outside of the game. I mean, is that I know that every team wants to show that, of course, every team wants to show that, hey, we're all getting along and we're skipping through fields of daisies holding hands and, yeah. But it seems like your team, from the pictures, from the videos that I see, even Temp seems like he's got like a positive attitude and he likes being around you guys. Like, is that an accurate depiction that outside of the game, you guys have some chemistry, but you're just trying to find it within the game, like while you're playing?
Yeah, I mean, we're good friends with each other. We all like to joke around and have a good time, which is definitely helpful. So we like to have a good time. But it is tough to have a good time when you're winning or you're not winning. So we got to figure out the stuff in game, and then when we're winning, we're gonna have a lot better time together. But no, we're all cool with each other, and we're all just people that just like to have fun.
So as we move into the kind of next section before we go to talking about the event and things like that, one of the things that's funny that you say that, because one of my things when I'm looking at Faze, Atlanta Faze, is if those guys that before the season started, I made a video about what their year was going to be like. And one of my biggest predictions was they're going to have fun winning. They're going to win. They've already proved that this last weekend, but they're going to win some tournaments and they're going to have fun doing it because the way they win, it seems like if they win, it's going to be dominant. Like, I don't know if we'll see Atlanta grind one out this year. I mean, I thought they would have to maybe if they saw Chicago, but, that didn't happen. And so I think you're right. When you're winning, it is easier to take that out of game fun right into the game. And then you laugh even while you're playing. You go up 2-0, you're going to win the last map. It's halfway through the dom and you're like, oh man, we got this, you can have a lot of fun in those moments and carry it to the next series. Definitely. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of talk about as it stands. And these are a couple things that I'm pulling out of the event, and then we're going to go into day one and day two, but I'm going to pull out of the event for us to talk about. And the first thing is, as corny as the statement is, Atlanta wasn't phased. And so I want to ask the two of you guys, like, your thoughts, and I'll start with you, Icon. Like, what are your thoughts on how they played and also who they played, like from what you saw from them in the tournament?
So it's actually, this kind of works out that we have attached here on the show, because so everybody saw what they did on Saturday. And then when it came time for Sunday, they struggled at the beginning there. They struggled early with Minnesota. And this is just a question that I had for you, Attach, is that if you're in that format, so if you're coming down to Sunday and you're in that format, oh man, you guys are cracking me up with but anyways, so you're in that format, it's championship and you're getting ready to play. So if you're Atlanta, you went 2-0, so you've already qualified for semifinals.
Yeah.
And you have to come out and you're cold against a team like Minnesota that just played. They ended up taking 3-2 over Paris. I mean, for me, that's I don't mind this format, but that's kind of the one issue that I have with it, is that those teams could look dominant on Saturday, such as Atlanta did. And then you come in, Minnesota just played. Minnesota's been having a good weekend. And then you're forced to play them in a semis where, I mean, you can warm up backstage or whatever all you want. So, yeah, I mean, is it hard to, I guess my question would be, how hard is it to really get into that mindset? Because you've seen teams struggle with that already this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, scrims backstage, no matter how hard you try, they're just not the same as being on the big stage. You can get very close, but you're not in the same mindset. You're never actually going 100% until you get on that stage. That's when you're actually going 100%. You can think you're going or try to go 100%, but you're not. So it's very tough, especially because you're facing a team that's off a win. So they're hot. They're in that tournament mode. Their communication's already good. That could be another big thing. If you're not really getting your communication warmed up and practicing it, it could definitely mess you up when it's your first match of the day after a team's already hot. They get that one first map win. They got momentum going into second map. They win that, and then you're just kind of down 0-2. The one thing that Faze showed was resilience to be able to bounce back like that and get that win, which that was huge from them. I think everyone was seeing if they can clutch up, and they proved they can.
Yeah, I think I mean, I see where you're coming from. It just seems like it's one of those things that's like, it's a little bit difficult to get the ball rolling, and then as soon as it does, it just takes off. And they showed that in the finals against Florida with the 3-0 there. So yeah, I mean, for me personally, Atlanta just struggled a tiny little bit to get going there against Minnesota, and so I watch a lot of scrims. I break down a lot of film, and I never even thought really about communication. So like, you can warm up your thumbs and your instincts and all that, but when it comes to communication, even in scrims, it's probably not the same as it is when you're on the main stage in front of the bright lights. So yeah, that's a solid point.
Yeah, no, definitely. It wouldn't be easy just to come off of just not playing all day, and it's never easy to do that and play a team that's warm. So the fact they're able to clutch up is very impressive.
Yeah, they did good. They had a great weekend, and we'll talk more about it when we get into the days. The second statement is Chicago fell short. And honestly, we know that for all of you guys, even for you, Attached, like, not winning is falling short. Like, there's no teams in this league that are like, we just need 10 points. Like, nobody goes into an event thinking like, I just need 20 points and then I'll be happy or we'll be in a better position. Like, no, we need to win. Like, that's putting ourselves in the best position for champs, period. And who everybody wants to be there. So when it comes to Chicago falling short, and I guess I'll start with you, Attached, just based on what you saw, what you heard maybe in some interviews, and you were around for Saturday, where do you think they went wrong, or what was off with the team this weekend?
I couldn't pinpoint exactly what was off, but you can tell something was off. I mean, they had a super close game to Toronto. If they don't clutch up that first map or win that, I think it was like a 1v1 round 11 game 5 after being up 4-0.
1v2.
Who knows how their weekend goes, but they definitely looked off, and I don't know exactly what it was, like I said, but they were able to get some wins while looking off, which is still a good thing. But yeah, they just did not look like they did in London.
What are your thoughts, Icon?
Yeah, for me, honestly, they look shaky like all weekend. And not necessarily shaky like in terms of bad. I mean, because they did have moments where they looked good. I was a little bit nervous for them when they matched up against Minnesota after that shaky start with Toronto, and they looked fantastic. I mean, they kind of had little moments of what they looked like in the past. So. Yeah, I mean, again, it is hard to pinpoint exactly what went wrong. I agree with Attached, but the one thing that I will mention here, just because we talked about it a little bit, I talked about it a little bit yesterday, is that from the beginning of when I go through and I look at people's Twitches and when they're streaming and scrimming and stuff like that, from the time that they left for London until they got back, there were 12 days in between like online scrims for like formal and scump and stuff like that. So they haven't streamed their scrims in 12 days. And I don't know if, that had a ton to do with it. Of course, they were getting experience at London and stuff like that, but you would have to figure that whole time Minnesota is just at home grinding and Florida is just at home grinding while that's all going on. So how much is it that they were unprepared, that they didn't get the reps that they would have normally gotten going into a tournament? I think that all played into it. But the last thing that I'll say is that I think that we have such high expectations for them that if you actually look at the stats, other than Faze, they were the only team that was above 500 in both respawn game types and search and destroy game types. So they were the only team other than Faze. So it was just timing wise that they didn't show up against Florida. So they still were one of the most dominant teams there. It just wasn't who we expected or what we're used to seeing. Yeah.
So my 17 cents is that the first map that I saw them play in, something was off. And it's weird when it comes to that team. You can just watch their mannerisms, the way they talk to each other, the way they celebrate or don't celebrate, their mood between maps. When there's something off, and then when you listen to the interviews in between matches, and every single player is saying, we have some stuff out of the game. We're not, getting along as well. We're arguing with each other. I mean, Arcides just came out and said it, like we were arguing, and he's like, somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I heard in an ESPN interview that when they went to round 11 with Toronto, their comms were not on point to start off that round. And so I don't know how feathers got ruffled. I don't know if there was some complaining because they weren't practicing, like you said, and maybe somebody decided to be the person to speak up and be like, hey guys, maybe if we would have practiced. And, nobody wants to hear that. And then you do have some big personalities on that team. And there's some potential clashes that have been discussed, Envoy and Gunless clashing, Scump and Formal clashing, took down one of the greatest dynasties in the history of our esport. There's a lot of potential for that. And yes, I'm sure that's the narrative that nobody wants to talk about. Like this team, what's going to happen when they lose? We're about to find out. They have a month off. What are they going to do? Like, you have a month to grind and get ready. And Attach, you'd probably agree, you can't take days off in this league. This is a professional franchise league with coaches, analysts. People are looking at your gameplay, your tendencies, and everything you do. When it used to be 4 guys talking together and saying, hey, so what do you think we should do against this team? What do you think? And now you have, you have people whose jobs are to analyze other teams. And so I think well-staffed teams like that, there's teams that hired 10 players. There's teams that hired, 4 coaches and analysts. It just really, it's going to make a difference. So when I look at Chicago, they're a team that hasn't in the past over-prepared and under-delivered. Normally when you over-prepare, you either deliver or you over-deliver on your preparation. There's a statement that says improper preparation, or it's actually, I'm going to say the real statement. It's piss poor preparation equals piss poor performance, and piss poor performance equals pain. And it's basically saying, could you guys hear my son in the background?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
That's my son, Evan. He just turned 8 on Friday.
Hey, happy birthday.
They said happy birthday, Evan. He's a Minecraft junkie. That's what this post
nice.
From his big brother. But so anyway, I guess I don't want to belabor the point, but I think you can't take any of these teams for granted. You can't. You just can't do it. No matter how successful you've been, you beat Dallas 3 times, you won London, you still have to get ready for that next 2 weeks, that next event. And Attach, I don't know if maybe you can kind of speak to what that preparation looks like for a professional esports organization. Like for you guys as a team, John, and I don't know who your other coaches and analysts are, but
JP.
Oh, and JP, that's right. Yeah. So are they preparing for who you are going to face and who you might face? Or are you guys spending most of your time talking about your first match and your potential qualifying match? What is, I mean, if you can share that, because I don't want you to give away strategy or anything like that.
I mean, definitely just kind of we don't really prepare for specific teams for like the whole time, but we want to get our game down initially, and then maybe like a couple of days out we'll start. Well, they'll be looking at other teams that we're going to play or potentially play and let us know their tendencies and all that stuff. So that's what they're doing while still helping us during scrims and all trying to get on the same page.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could definitely prepare, but you don't want to over prepare because you still need to play your game. Because if you over prepare for one team and then you play another team who doesn't play anything like the other team you prepared for, then you're kind of in a bad spot. So you want to play your game and maybe make some slight changes to things you notice that you're gonna that are gonna change when you play teams that you prepared for.
Well, everyone that was playing Chicago, including Atlanta, there was an interview done that was amazing by Katie Bedford, and she interviewed Atlanta, and all the players said the same thing. We need to play our game, stick to our strategy. But number 3, we need to stop Envoy. If we face them, that's what we're focused on. It seems like other teams in certain maps and modes were able to, like, I think his best KD this weekend might have been in Search. Like, they were able to slow him down, and it made a difference on Chicago, and they weren't able to adjust. And so they're a great team. They're well staffed. The thing about it is, you can have coaches and all that, but you guys also have 5 professional Call of Duty players that have been studying tendencies in other players for a very long time.
Yes.
Okay, so the next thing for As It Stands is the Rokkr rocked. They did an amazing job this weekend. They're that. I'm going to throw a stone out there and say that they're going to be this year's E-United, that they're going to be like that likable team that everybody just wants them to win just because they want them to win, except for when they play against their people. But they kind of started to walk in those shoes in this. I think everybody kind of at towards the end of the tournament, it's like, man, Minnesota's really showing up. I like Minnesota and all the guys on, and you hear everybody talk about when they played Minnesota. It's like, I love all those guys on Minnesota. They're just all great guys, and so I think they're becoming that. I guess my kind of question is, what did they do to find success? Like from the standpoint of another pro, and then Icon from the standpoint of an analyst, like what did they do like that you guys saw?
I would say they just put in a lot of time because I just know at the beginning of the game they were playing a lot of search and destroy tournaments. I was playing the S&D tournaments with them, and if they're doing the same thing by playing tons of search and destroy, that usually means they're doing a lot of preparing and respawn and team scrims. So I think they were just well prepared for this year. They all probably came into the year with a chip on their shoulder. Probably because people weren't rating them too high, so that is probably another big thing. And then they're just like, we're gonna cancel all the noise, practice, and just become good. And they've been playing pretty well this season so far.
I'm pretty sure they out-scrimmed everyone at the beginning. Like when I saw the original scrim numbers, I was like, dang, Minnesota, like they had almost double the amount of scrims as some of the other teams. And we know some teams like the Gorillas started with 2 weeks to go. Like they started really late on scrimming. What about you, Icon?
I don't know. It was kind of like a tale of two stories for me with them also, because I thought they were super impressive against Paris both times that they faced them. And then again against Chicago, they seemed kind of flat. I was just pulling for them before they got reverse swept by Atlanta.
Yeah.
I don't know. They seemed to have all the momentum. It seemed like everything was on their side. And one of the most impressive things to me is that when they beat Paris both those times, they did it in different ways. So they kind of strung. So like the first time they came out a little slow, they lost the hard point, and then they just stacked together the next search, the next dom, the next hard point, and they won that one 3-1. And then the next time they played Paris, it kind of, it went to that game 5, and they ended up clutching up. It was like, I think it was 6-0. I think they 6-0'd them in that game 5, the second time they played Paris. But it was just a different, I don't know, it was a different feel. It was almost like as they went into that last search, there was an opportunity there where maybe they could have been up against the ropes or something like that, and they were resilient and they came out and they really took that one. I was hoping to see a little bit more success against Atlanta just because it would have been a good storyline.
The storylines. Oh my gosh.
But I mean, those guys are impressive. And that's what I'll say about Atlanta too, is that every time I see them in like a post-game interview, they're so likable. Like they're not up there like trash talking. They're not talking down on anybody. I mean, Celium and Abizi, I mean, all those guys, they're just likable dudes too. So I don't know. That's just a little note that I had for Atlanta I wanted to put out there.
Yeah, they are very likable.
Yeah, no, without a doubt.
I would just say, I I'm gonna agree just 100% with Attach. I mean, that's kind of what I've been saying, and I kind of tweeted after they beat Paris. I said that wasn't a fluke. They're showing that they belong in like top 6 in this league, and that when everybody was saying they're top 4, all pro players that had scrimmed them were saying they're top 4. They came out and confirmed it. Like, hey, Minnesota, yeah, we got a disqualification and beat the Gorillas, but it wasn't a fluke. Like, and then they beat Paris again, and then they showed strong against Faze. Like, I think what they're showing is like every other team that kind of wants to show that like you can't second guess them. So the last thing I kind of want to share, and we don't have to list. I don't want you guys to list a full power rankings. And I know this may be interesting for you, Attach. We're going to exclude New York because you'll be biased, and because we'll be biased because we want to make you smile because you're on our show.
Awesome.
So I want to talk power rankings and how they may have changed a little bit based on what happened at this event. There's a crazy tweet, and I'm calling it crazy, that somebody was like saying that Chicago isn't top 2. And I was like, what? You know, I just kind of, that boggled my mind. I was like, they've lost one match. It just happened to be an elimination match. Like, yep. They've lost one match, and they've grinded out and clutched up. On Saturday, they had to clutch up to get out of Saturday. Like, they, even in their second series, Formal was like, it was sloppy. You know, the score doesn't always tell. Like, it was a sloppy series. We kind of squeaked through, and we'll be better tomorrow. And so I kind of want to ask, and I'll maybe start with mine and kind of tell you guys what changes I may have seen. In terms of power rankings, they're weird because of the way the standings are, and we are going to look at the standings later in the show. But I would say the big switch that's kind of taken place for my power rankings is I had Chicago number 1 coming into this event, even though Faze was so invincible, and but now Faze is the only team that hasn't lost a match. Yeah. Their search record is not as good as it was going into Sunday. They were 24-6 or something crazy in search rounds. But they got put up against the wall in a couple of those, like with the Rokkr and everything. And of course, Florida has solidified that, like, I don't know, somewhere between 5th and 8th. It's hard to pick. And then I don't know what to do with London and Paris. I really thought at least one of them would make the semis, but in my predictions, I said I thought Minnesota would make the semis. I just thought that they were going to come out and show and prove. Yeah. And I'm glad they did. I did not. I don't think anybody had Florida winning this event. So they've definitely moved up in the power rankings. I would put Florida in contention with the London and Paris teams with what they just did. They showed like they showed on day 1 and day 2, they can fight. If there's fighting that has to take place in competitive Call of Duty, Florida can fight. And that's what I've learned about their team. They have some fight in them, and something motivates, and I don't think it was just Pristini, something motivates that team to fight hard. And yeah, maybe once beating Pristini, beating Alec, the emotions probably deflated the team a little bit, much like when Merc beat Optic at Champs and then got in the finals and just got blasted. It's like, but that team was so excited to beat Optic, because they had dropped him. And Pristini kept saying, you dropped me, you left me, like that was an emotional moment for him. So it probably showed in that final match, but I think Florida did really good. So I'd say for power rankings, my biggest switch is the number 1 spot going clearly to Faze, in my opinion, even though everybody's saying, like Nameless mentioned, they haven't played Chicago. But I would say for the sake of power rankings, which is predictions of the future and how things are going to land, Faze should win the next event. I mean, honestly, so that's where I am. I'll slide it over to you, Attach.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say Faze is still first. I would still keep Chicago. I would put Chicago second now, even though they had a bad weekend. I would still say they're second. I was just leave them at second.
There,
yeah, their potential is definitely there, and they still won maps in one series while having a sloppy weekend. So I still got to keep them second right there, unless they go to the next event and don't play well. Then maybe they would go down. But for now, I'm keeping them second. And do you have to go to like the whole list, everyone?
No. You can just talk about any teams that because of this event have taken leaps up or down, I guess.
Yeah, I would kind of say Paris and London stayed in the same spots. Wherever They have like probably like fifth, sixth-ish, and I
Yeah.
would probably put, or like maybe even, I'd probably boost up Minnesota and Florida above them, and I think they're right. Minnesota and Florida would be right behind like the Dallas Empire, and then after
okay.
Florida and Minnesota, because I'm still keeping Dallas third, and I would put Minnesota, Florida like fourth, fifth,
Mhm.
and then like London and Paris behind them. So that would be
Okay.
my
All right.
main ones.
Is what's happened with OGLA unexpected to you, Attach?
I mean, definitely. Everyone expected them to be a powerhouse team coming into this with all the stars and smart players on their team.
Right.
I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if it's internal issues or just they don't like the gameplay is just not good. They're not good together, but it's just very surprising. And Slashers teams have had bad starts in the past, so I still do expect them to turn it around. I think this LA event is everything for them because they haven't won a match, right? I don't know if they have.
Only team with no points.
Yeah, okay. So they haven't won a match, and so I would say this LA event is do or die for them. Their backs up against the wall. If they don't do good here, they definitely make a change without a doubt.
Yep.
So this is
100%.
This is the time they need to turn up. So
I'm gonna throw it out there, and we'll get to it. I think there's more than that team. I think that's the only team that, like, if they don't get any points, they make a change. But I think there's more than just that team. That this is one of the most important weekends of the year.
Oh, definitely.
Going
you can
into
say that for
LA.
a lot. You can say it for a lot of teams. A lot of teams.
There's because we're gonna see a different dividing of the pack after that event. If the Gorillas continue to lose at their homestead and they face each other, I think in the opening, that's a weird. But they face each other.
Then, another team gets like the teams that have. I think Gorillas has one win, I believe.
Yeah.
And so one of those teams is getting another loss, and they're putting them both in a really bad position. And even us, like we only have one win. So that's
and you
tough.
can start against Dallas, right?
Yeah, we have a really tough match versus Dallas. So we got to put in a lot of time and make sure we get on the same page because we can't let another thing like London happen where we won first match really well. We were playing super good versus London. We won first map, clutched up second, and then got reverse swept because going 2-0 in a day, getting that momentum, and then being in the top 4 is huge. And if we would have been able to clutch up, we would have had a lot more points. And who knows what happens Sunday? Maybe we win the event. Maybe we get second. I don't know. But we cannot let another sloppy series like that happen or a sloppy tournament like that happen for us.
And I'm sure, I don't know if you know this, Attached. I don't know how much you guys, sometimes professional athletes watch or don't watch the noise depending on how it makes them play, like the media commentary. You guys are one of those teams. There's a couple of them in this league, like OGLA, where you guys can beat any of the teams in the league, even the top teams. Like your roster, what you guys have done in the past, your potential for the future. There are some teams where it's like, I don't think that. And Toronto is one of those teams that got slept on like that. But I would say win that Dallas match. Like
that would be good. That would be good.
I mean, I don't, not a pressure moment, but I'm saying that would show and prove something to everybody. Like, hey, we beat this team and now we belong and can, even if you have, no matter how many points you leave with the event, beating Dallas in that opening match would be big for you guys. And I know you're preparing for it and everything. And of course you guys feel the same, and not to put pressure on yourselves, but to just gas yourselves up and be ready for it. You know what I'm saying? Icon? Power rankings?
So just like that, it's really hard to rank these guys by numbers, but I really feel like there are 3 groups. I feel like there's like the 2 at the top that have performed and are performing. I think Atlanta's clearly number 1, but Chicago, even though they had a rough weekend, I mean, they've proven that they can be there. So I think there's those 2 that are performing. I think there's a group at the bottom that's not performing. So you have like the OGLA in Toronto and Seattle and LAG. And then in the middle, I think there's just a bunch of teams that are threatening right there. So Dallas, Florida, Minnesota, Paris, London, attach you guys. I feel like if you took any of those teams and it doesn't matter which 2, if you were to pick 2 out of a hat, I feel like if those 2 teams were to play 10 times, one team would win 6 of those times and one team would win 4. I feel like everybody in the middle there is so close. So I will say that going into this weekend, I was really impressed with Paris and London, what they did in London. So I had them a little bit above what Minnesota and Florida did. And then after this weekend, I mean, how can you not be impressed with the way Minnesota and Florida came out? So I agree. They're a little bit above those 2 other teams, but I just feel like everybody right in that, they're in the middle there. They're just, everybody's so talented, and you can't really, I think there's just those two teams that you can say might be a little bit better so far, and then everybody else is just beating each other up. And real quick, I will say that Group B in Los Angeles, man, that is tough. I mean, you guys, I mean, you guys in Dallas and Florida and Atlanta, I mean, it's going to be a tough road ahead of you guys. But yeah, if you can come out like you guys said, if you can come out and beat Dallas, that would be massive for your confidence.
There's a 90% chance to get to day 2, you're gonna have to beat Dallas or Atlanta, and so that's like a it's a show and prove opportunity. I think it's a great opportunity for you guys. Like people talk about, Icon talks about it all the time. One of the best Dom losses that we've seen, was when you guys beat Atlanta.
The most impressive map that I've seen was at Minnesota launch weekend.
Yeah,
that domination win you guys had over Atlanta.
Yeah. We all know the potential is there. It's just kind of like, all right, here comes the event. Let's do this. And so I'm so excited for LA. Like, there's some teams that I'm just like hoping they, and that's on the other side of the bracket. I'm hoping they kind of, maybe I just really would love to see OGLA get a win. That would be great for those guys. They're too talented. But the way things have worked out, and some people have said it's the bracket and the teams, they've had the toughest schedule. But I mean, Dallas has had a pretty tough schedule. They played Chicago and Faze in the first weekend, and they missed out on 20 points. And so while you're Chicago now and you're sitting at 70 because you got those 20 points extra, and you're Faze and you got those 20 points extra, like that, it matters, so
definitely.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. Keep typing your questions in the chat. I love seeing all the talking, and thanks for all the follows, guys. We're approaching 6,000 followers, but I love seeing all the talking and chatter in the chat. I love seeing you guys talk back and forth. I'll be grabbing some questions from chat. When we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit about day 1, day 2, current standings, and then we're going to talk about some storylines before we get out of here. So we'll see you guys on the other side of however many minutes goalie takes us away for. Heard goalie say that we're live. Okay, he said we're live now. All right, welcome back to the show, guys. We've been having a blast. We talked through some power rankings and some of the scenarios that came out of the previous event. I see you guys going crazy in the chat about Chicago versus Minnesota, and I love
Let me check it out.
I love to see it. The storylines, honestly, are what makes Call of Duty esports, in my opinion, one of the best esports on the planet, because you don't have storylines like this in anything else. You don't get the twins going against each other and all the emotions on the stage and like all of the storylines that are happening. Like, it's amazing. I made a whole video about Pristine and RCD facing each other, and I thought it wasn't going to happen until Chicago. And then these guys end up, because Florida's like, nah, they're going to do this now. And now it's like big brother beats up little brother and they're twins. And I told you I didn't need you. What now, punk? But I love you. Give me a hug. It's like, it was like such an interesting. Go ahead.
I think that definitely is what separates Call of Duty from any other esport. I feel like Call of Duty, the supporters and the viewers and followers know so much about each player and so much about their background, where in other esports, I feel like sometimes that is the case as well. But I feel like in Call of Duty, you know everything about everyone. And I think that's why Call of Duty got built up, because Call of Duty esports didn't get built up, in my opinion, too much because of like the game. I think a lot of it was back in the day, like that rivalry, complexity in Black Ops 2. Like everyone loved Optic and wanted to see them win events, but they weren't winning in Black Ops 2 except for that one UMG one. And then complexity was dominating, but everyone wanted to see Optic win, so they hated complexity. And it was just like those are like the storylines that get built up. The Farico one, like all that. So I feel like a lot of people fall in love with Call of Duty esports because of the personalities and teams in it, not so much for the game.
And you guys are not shy about showing your personalities.
Definitely
like, that makes a difference. Like when you have players that are not, like, there's some shy players in our league, like Hook is a shy dude. I bet you in person he's not, like, but kind of on camera and even on Twitter, he's just a shy guy. Like, but the personalities in Call of Duty are like, I'm out here, I'm in your face, you know. I'm like, you guys are not afraid of, and you're also just, because I remember I got to meet you in person, which was pretty dope in Seattle, you and your mom, and like you guys are also super freaking genuine, just genuine, down to earth, like, yeah, I want to beat them and all this kind of stuff, and I'm going to talk mess and scream on the stage. But, you know, I love that I get to play Call of Duty for a living, and, you know, in a way, I think sometimes you guys see each other as peers. I don't know if that's an incorrect assumption, but like even if you're on
Uh,
different teams, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, we've all been through so much together, just from being here since the beginning of Call of Duty, even before I went like pro or was even in the scene and know. These people have went to events together. They've traveled the world together. And then when I got in, I've traveled the world together with these people, talked to them so much, built friendships that will probably last for a very long time. So we really look back at it. We really grew up together because it all started when a lot of people were like 15 years old,
Yep.
14, and traveling the world, which is just crazy. So we've been through a lot together, traveled a lot, had a lot of fun, made a lot of good memories for the most part. Then there's obviously the little beefs here and there that happen.
Yeah.
That's just going to happen naturally.
Right.
But yeah, we've been through so much together, and it's so crazy to have a lot of people that you've been through so much with still in the community today.
That is, and then there's the fallen ones that kind of disappear, and you're kind of like, hey, what happened to that guy? You know, and that happens, you know, in our esport. And so, all right, we're gonna get a little bit into the days, and because for the sake of time, we're not going like match by match or anything like that. But I do want to talk a little bit about, and Attach, I know you were there on Saturday, and you watched some on Sunday, but I also know you're probably aware of all the matches, but maybe didn't watch every single one. I mean, I don't know what you guys do. As a commentator, of course, you know, I was glued to the screen like crazy.
Yeah.
So I kind of, the first question I have is like on Saturday, you know, kind of what was learned. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys all three of these and you can share to any of them. So what did we learn on day one? What were the best matches and moments, and what surprised you? And I'll start with you, Icon.
All right. So what did I learn? Immediately, we learned that Minnesota was the real deal, right? We weren't really sure like what they were capable of up until Saturday. So even going into that, in my predictions, I thought that was going to be Paris, right? I thought Paris was going to make it out of that bracket. Was going to be the other team to make it out. So right away we learned like, okay, so Minnesota is absolutely in that top echelon there. So for me, we learned that they could play. We learned right away that Chicago wasn't quite Chicago, and we talked about them already. So I guess maybe they showed that they can have an off tournament, right? That's something that I've talked about a little bit, is that before this, you kind of figured like maybe if one person has a down tournament, the rest of them can pick up the slack. And really what we learned is like, it's capable that a couple of them or two of three of them don't really play very well. Like this past weekend, Scump and Formal, T2P, they just didn't really have a great event. Right. So we learned that maybe if two of them don't have a great event, the other three can't really overtake what's happening there. I was a little bit discouraged by the way that Paris performed. I just expected, I don't know why, I was just so high on them after what they did over in London. Paris and London, I was super impressed with them. So I was really looking forward to what they were able to do. And they just didn't, I don't know, they just didn't perform like I thought that they would. And then, unfortunately, I think OGLA is in a lot of trouble. I mean, if they're the only team without points and you're really trying to make those top, what do we say, it was like the top 8 teams for champs. I mean, you're putting yourself kind of really behind the 8 ball there. So, I mean, think about it. If they don't come out and play well at this next event in LA, right. I mean, we're only in our 4th event, right? Going into our 3rd tournament, but 4th weekend. Yeah. And if they don't play well, I mean, is it already time where you're thinking, well, maybe there's not enough time left for them to turn things around? I don't know. That's the thing with like all of these cumulative points that build up week after week after week. If they start in such a hole where they're at, who knows? One thing that I'll say, probably the best match for me was that Toronto-Chicago match. I thought there was for me, there was absolutely the most like emotion that went into that match, because I'll be honest with you, I ordered a pizza, man. I sat down, I was watching some Call of Duty, and all of a sudden, like halfway through 3rd map, I'm like, oh crap, like maybe I won't get to relax like I thought I would. Yeah. So yeah, that map 5 round 11 was something for me. Crazy. And then also the draw in that domination match between Florida and OGLA. Yeah, that was bananas. Like, not only was that super intense, but it was the first time that we've seen a draw, even though the score didn't say a draw. Yeah. So it was interesting to see how they were gonna treat that. So for me, that's what I learned. Those were my best matches, surprises, stuff like that on day one.
Okay. Attach.
Yeah, I would definitely say the best match of the day, easily Toronto and Chicago. I was at my hotel on Saturday. I started watching the match. I was like, oh my God, Toronto is frying. I think they were up on the Hackney Yard by a pretty good amount. I get to the venue. I'm like, they lost first map? Okay. And I was like, they're probably going to get smoked after that. And no, they played pretty well. They brought it to map 5, and they were down 0-4, and everyone probably thought that was watching, oh, this is over. Chicago got this. But Toronto fought back, and they went to round 11 and almost won. So that was probably the biggest or the best match of the day, I'd say.
Yeah.
And if they would have won that, I mean, they would have had all the momentum in the world going forward. So I think that's a really heartbreaking loss for Toronto because they've definitely been one of the teams that's been underperforming so far this season. So that's definitely a heartbreaking loss for them. I think we also saw that a lot. Atlanta is still dominant. That was like their first match since Minnesota. So we've heard about them online and team scrims. Well, everyone that's been like following COD's heard about them, but they just showed that we're the real deal that first day, and they won 2 matches, I believe. I can't remember who it was versus Optic LA and who was it? The second one. Oh no,
their second match was on Sunday. They played.
Oh,
Paris.
it was.
Yeah.
Oh, they only played 1 match on the first day.
So they played. No, I think they played.
They played
Paris
2 on the first day.
Minnesota played Paris on the first day, and and they lost to Chicago.
They played Chicago.
No, Atlanta.
Oh yeah, Atlanta played London and OGLA.
Okay, OGLA and then London. Yeah, I think Atlanta solidified that like we're the real deal again. Yes. We're back, and they went 2-0. The third craziest thing, the third thing was it kind of sucks that Optic LA played Faze Atlanta because they're just a really good team right now. So that's just a tough loss. And then that domination. Because I think if OGLA would have clutched up, got 1 more kill, and got the win, they would have been up in the series 2-1 versus Florida. So that was just such a huge momentum swing. And then they just lost the series 3-1 after that. So their struggles just continued. But that could have changed the team morale for sure if they would have got that win. So they're still
won
struggling.
that Dom. Would you think they would win the series?
Yeah, definitely. I think they would have won the series because I mean they got 2 more chances. Like the way you're feeling is a lot different going into that 4th map than when you win than when you get the loss. So that was tough.
So for me, I'm like sitting here flipping through. I took way too many notes, guys. It's really bad. One of the things I'm noticing as I'm looking at my notes is Chicago had some hardpoint struggles. They against Toronto, like you said, they went down 60, and they just basically if you can call it a reverse sweep, it was like 234 to 175, and Chicago just took the rest of the points.
That's crazy. That's hard to do. It's hard to do.
Yeah, they kind of ran away with it, but no, I'm sorry. Chicago was up that much because they had reverse swept from whatever lead Toronto had. But in the second hard point, Toronto was up at 1 point, 219 to 130. And so again, you can't. This isn't a slay enough heavy game, in my opinion, where you can just come back from a deficit like that and depend on that. And teams are studying how to rotate tendencies, all that kind of stuff. In the second series, they were down 76-0 in the first hard point against the Rokkr. Like 76-0, and they end up losing 250 to 107. Who would have ever thought that the first team almost getting 100-point clubbed would be Chicago in hardpoint? I didn't see that happening. So I'm happy they won that series because not seeing them play on Sunday would have been very awkward. So both of the series, but that game 5 round 11, and I'll say this, I'm happy that Toronto is finally like, yeah, we're here. Okay, I'm looking at. Thanks for putting questions from chat, goalie, in the chat. So it's like for Toronto, they've said like now, because I said at the beginning of the season, they are going to be the meme team. They are going to have the best and most entertaining content, period. Like there's no way they're letting methods be methods. Like this team is going to be so fun to watch. And the bright pink, it's going to be crazy and amazing. And the players they have are just fun. And then they came out and they're like, we almost beat you. That's kind of like what their video said yesterday. And I'm like, come on, guys, just have more fun with it. Like, Yeah, but almost doesn't count in this league. That's what's unfortunate. Is like, unfortunately, Toronto went home without any points. They got close as you can get to Chicago. But I don't know about you, Attach. I'd rather that last game be a 6-0 than a game 5 round 11 to lose against Chicago at that point. Like that I know that was painful for them, and you could see on their faces of all the fun that team has when they lost that. It was just because, and you're a professional player, you guys have talked about this in the past, you revisit that play over and over and over and over. What if we would have? What if I would have ran the full rotation? What if I would have? And then I would have picked up what if I would have checked the bomb? Literally 1 second earlier would have changed that whole game. Yep. Like that moment for me was bananas. I was nervous, and I wasn't nervous because I'm like a Huntsman fan, because I'm a Seattle fan this year as a Seattle native and a dad and all that. But I'm like, as a COD fan, I was nervous. Like, what is about to happen? Like, this is crazy. Why are we at game 5, round 11 right now? What is happening? And Stump said in the interview afterwards, we underestimated them a little. And I'm actually glad to hear them say that. You never want to say that. You don't want, as a competitor, you don't want to say you underestimated a team a little bit, but Envoy kind of confirmed it. And so that was my big thing on that day, is I learned Chicago had some clear vulnerabilities that could cost them this tournament, which, I mean, they ended up not, making it as far as they wanted to at all. Like, in my opinion, they wanted second at the very least, but of course they wanted to win. They wanted to prove something, like, no, Faze can't stop us, all this kind of stuff. But, they didn't prove it. So, all right, moving to day 2. We can talk a little bit about best matches and moments, step ups and letdowns. Like, what teams left day 2 not as well as they wanted to, and who stepped up on day 2? That's kind of an obvious question. And then kind of ending with, what did we learn from this tournament? Like, what? And I'll start. I'll say real quick that, of course, Florida stepped up. Yeah. I said it earlier, but they had a lot of dog in the fight, I guess, if that's a terminology. Pristini fried against London. They won that by almost 100, 250 to 154. And London beat them 6-1 in the search, and it was like, okay, all right, this could actually happen. But then it goes to game 5, and Florida wins 6-3, and we found out, okay, Arcides and Pristini are going to face off. And I guarantee you guys, everyone thought, dang, Arcides has to beat his brother. And even when you heard the interviews of Arcides, it almost sounded like that. Well, I'm going to have to face him. And it's almost like I'm going to have to use my mighty team and show him, teach him a lesson or two, teach him a thing or two. But they weren't the ones doing the teaching. And that was, to me, the Faze versus Rokkr series was freaking ridiculous. I just said, what a series. I took no notes. You guys can't see it, but I said HP, Rokkr take game 1, 250, 211. And I didn't write anything else, but what a series. Game 5, round 9, Faze takes it. The Rokkr could win Minnesota. I don't know why I wrote that. Maybe they could win their own event. I don't know why I wrote that. But I was impressed with the Rokkr overall. And the Chicago, Florida, I'll say this for what it's worth. We're going to talk about it a little bit later, but what I learned from this event, I guess, I'm going to skip over that. What I learned from this event overall is that this format works, in my opinion. And I don't know how you feel about it, Dylan, but this format, I'm already used to it after 2 events. I'm used to this GSL format, and I thought that it was going to be weird. I'm sure, as someone that wasn't there, those other 4 teams wanted to be there, but at the same time, I think this works. It brings a level of entertainment and build up to that final day. And then once you get in those final matches, it's like, okay, you can't slip up or you're out, and there's a lot of pressure on those matches. It did when we saw those 2 teams facing off, Chicago and Florida, and instead of Chicago getting to go to a loser's bracket, they're out. Like, it made such a big difference. And it meant a lot going into that grand final. And so I also learned that I don't think hype battles should be put before the grand final. I learned that. That broke the consistency of the tournament.
Yeah.
If Chicago was in the final, you could have gotten away with that, which that's what everybody was thinking, because everybody would have watched anyway. But I think it was you, Icon, that said on your stream last night, we dropped 50,000 viewers, half of our viewers
immediately.
Because Chicago was out of the tournament, like immediately. Yeah. And then you throw a hype battle, so you're not going to retain anything. You know, it's like, oh, we're not even showing competitive Call of Duty. I went and did other stuff during the hype battle. I listened to it a little bit, and I'm not saying the hype battle wasn't a cool thing. It just, before the grand final, especially a grand final that was unexpected, where it's like what we would call maybe an underdog phase, and many of us were anticipating what happened, which was a 3-0. You got to and getting and maybe thinking for a moment this, but that break changed everything, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is either one of you want to go first on kind of what you learned from the event? Who stepped up and
I'll go.
the letdowns were? Okay.
I will say Florida and Minnesota stepped up. I think those are the obvious ones. Chicago kind of went down just because of a sloppy weekend, but they're still second. But like, I'm just saying they were like a letdown to everyone. How for the expectations they have, everyone just thinks they should easily be top 2 at the tournament, at that tournament for sure, like in the finals. And I do agree with that point about the what was that, the 2v2 gunfight? What's that?
The hype battle.
The hype battle. I think they have to change that. It's just not. To be honest, no one wants to watch it. It's just that simple. If anything, you should put it at before all the matches, because once you're into that tournament mode, and even the players, the viewers, you want to see the tournament. That's what you're bought into. You don't care about who. It could be the most famous person in the world. No one's gonna care that much, because that's just how it is. So they need to move the hype battle, because it costs them a lot of viewers. So I would say Chicago getting out costed them a lot of viewers, and then going right into a hype battle that no one cares about, that's going to cost them a lot more viewers, even on top. So it's like a double whammy of Chicago losing and then the hype battle. So they got to get rid of that, or they have to put it in the front of all the matches, because everyone wants to see a tournament, a Call of Duty tournament. That's why we're watching. So get that out of the way. Do not put it in the middle. And then, that's all I have to say.
I think in terms of step ups, for me, of course you have Minnesota and Florida, but you guys have already talked about that. For me, it was Atlanta, especially in the final. Atlanta just showed up, made quick work of Florida. It was a quick 3-0. And I think that they really asserted themselves of, hey, we're the best team in the game. We're going to show it. We're going to prove it. Even though Florida just had this battle with Chicago and all that. For me, I think the team that stepped up the most, and not so you would expect that to happen, but I just think that they proved it. So even in that Florida, there wasn't much there in terms of excitement, right? It was just kind of, okay, Atlanta's just running over Florida and they're going to win this thing. So letdown would have to be Chicago, because leading up to this, the entire time, all that we were talking about was that potential meetup with Atlanta and Chicago. That was it the entire time. So with Chicago not coming through the way that we had hoped that they would for that potential final, that was the biggest letdown for me. And one thing I'll say about the moment is, and I've seen this kind of here and there, but I really didn't like that interview with Arcides and Pristini. I think if they just would have, like, if they would have just gave it like a half hour, maybe done it like in between the hype battle or something, but those two guys, they already wear their emotions on their sleeves. So having to be in front of everybody after a big match like that, I don't know. I personally just don't like the timing of that interview. But one thing that I will say, and I said this on my stream yesterday, and I've kind of been throwing this out there a lot of people that have been asking, is that for me, the only reason why I did like it is because for me, that really showed that they care, right? Like that match absolutely mattered to them. Whereas, so like, I'll just use this example because it's one I've been using and I'm a Cleveland fan. It's like you watch the Browns, they go out, they stink it up, they get smoked. And then after the game's over, you have Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson, they're exchanging jerseys and just chalking it up and laughing and stuff like that. Whereas with these guys, it just really seemed that they cared about what was going on. So in terms of moments, that's probably the one that I would go with. And then the viewership I was going to point out also, but we already ran through that. So that's my takes for day 2.
All right, guys, we're gonna do current standings and storylines to finish off the show. But before we do, we're gonna take a quick 2-minute break for I'm sure you guys have seen the technical stuff going on. We're gonna reset our call, switch servers, and all that kind of stuff. So we will be right back. All right, we're on East. We're living with Attach.
Let's go.
All right,
We're living with Attach.
Thank you guys, by the way, for all the congrats on Twitter and all that kind of stuff for my new job. I'll be honest with you guys, it's not even real yet. Like I've already started working. Like you hit the ground running with this kind of stuff, but it's not real yet, and it'll be real probably when I start communicating with other people within the organization a lot more, and people that have my job already. There's a couple people that do this and start learning. But then also when I show up at an event, that'll be cool. Like that's what I look forward to. Like,
yeah.
I did want to touch on, before we continue, what Icon was saying before the break, and we're skipping way down to the storylines portion, but we just won't talk about the twins. Beautiful moment. At the same time, like if I'm Preston, I want to be able to gloat for a minute without looking at my brother crying in my face, because it's hard because Preston was crying too, and he's like, he wants to talk crap, but he can't. Like they're asking him like, so why? What were you saying there before the match was over? And he's like, oh, just nothing much. And it's like, Courage handled it really well, but shout out to Jack, but. Yeah. Also, you put freaking Arcides up there, who honestly is ready to lose it. Yeah. He's looking at his mom and whole family crying in the crowd, and he just took an L that means, they asked him later, what did you guys talk about? And he said, it was loud voices. It was like they didn't have a lot of nice things to say to each other as a team. They were not happy with the way they went out of this tournament. And so, because it's almost like when LeBron left Cleveland and he went back, and I think the Heat had went down by like 20 something, but then they made this crazy comeback and they won the game. I'm sure you know this story, Icon, because you probably hate LeBron, because you're from Ohio. But like that whole storyline, like they were like, we're gonna do everything to make sure that LeBron gets a W when we play his team, and so for me, that was too big of a deal to handle it the way they handled it. But anyway, all right. So we're going to go into current standings. We're going to take a look at the standings real quick. And kind of what I want to talk to you guys about or ask you guys about is what storyline or what do you learn, I guess, by looking at the standings? What is important? It's kind of on the screen, on the stream. You can see it. Goalie's got it up there. And I think he has win-loss as well. And I kind of just want to know, and I'll start with you, Icon. Like, what do you learn looking at the standings? What matters? A lot of people in the beginning were like, the standings don't matter. I am way against that, and I'll talk about it in a second. But I think the standings are important to look at because they determine who's going to champs. I mean, the standings
they're very important. Yeah. Very important. That's everything. Standings are literally everything.
How you start in this league determines how you finish in this league. So, Icon, if you want to kind of talk about that.
Yeah, for me, I think just to clarify that point, because when I said that the standings don't matter, that's when we were talking about like the discrepancy between how many points Atlanta would have after so many events and how many points Chicago would have after so many events.
I wasn't even talking about you, to be honest.
Yeah, no. But I did mention a statement like that, so I just wanted to clarify. So like I feel like for those teams that already have titles under their belts, I just feel like it doesn't really matter for those. But where it does matter is in that, that 8 through 12 range. So with Toronto already being at 2 events, I mean, that really puts them kind of behind everybody else in that regards. But I'll tell you, LA is super important for me. When I look at this, I don't really look at Paris or Minnesota or Florida, or I don't look at that bunch that's in the middle. I'm really just focused on those 4 or 5 teams that have 10 points or less. So in terms of standings, that's my takeaway, is that like the teams at the top, I feel like they've kind of already secured where they're at in a way. right? Because you wouldn't expect, so for example, like Paris or Minnesota or Florida, you wouldn't expect them to go 0-2 in their next 3 tournaments or something, right? Even if they get 1 or 2 wins, they're still probably going to have enough points to be solidified in their roles somehow, at least. Now, if Seattle comes out and wins a tournament, Attach, if you guys come out and win a tournament, now that's maybe where their pro points start to get a little bit iffy, because you guys could easily leapfrog them by having a good weekend at one of these tournaments.
Right.
So for me, if I'm looking at that graphic, I really just look at like 8 through 12, and that's just where my eyes gravitate. And all of those teams, they need to have big weekends coming up at LA. So that's what I'll be looking for once LA comes.
All right. What about you, Attach?
When I look at that, we got to win. That's all I see. I don't care about anyone else. We just got to win. The good thing is there's a lot of teams that also haven't won. I'm really happy Chicago and Atlanta are at the top, because that's where a lot of people expected them. Like, if we had teams that you wouldn't expect to be at the top, and then Chicago and Atlanta were even worse or like lower on the standings, then it'd be crazy, because those teams are gonna be good. So I'm really glad they're at the top, and I'm pretty thankful for how this turned out, that we still have a chance to make some noise. And if we win in one event, because we have a lot of events coming up soon after this LA one, so we got to do well in LA, and then we have like I think 3 events in a month. So that we're gonna do well in LA, and then we're gonna take one of the next 3 events that we have in April, I believe. So just get good, start off hot, and win, because that's what we got to do, because we want to make it to champs, and we want to win that too. But it all starts with what we do every single day in practice as a team, outside of game as a team, what we talk about. And we all know what we need to do. We know how good we can be, and we don't want any of this more losing shit, because it sucks.
Have you ever had to play 3 tournaments in a row like you're about to have to do in April, where it's like
nah,
1, 2, 3, like 3 weeks in a row you're gonna play literally a tournament in, what is it, Chicago, Seattle,
Florida, Seattle,
like
3 straight
and
weekends.
so 3 straight, and I keep saying I think after that I call it the mid-season sprint, because after that some teams only have like 3 tournaments left, and so after those 3, I think the standings are really going to show, okay, who's fighting for wild card, who's totally out of it, who's in it. I would say for me, what the standings tell me is Toronto is the only team that has been to every event and doesn't have 40 points. And it's an interesting number, but they've been to every single event that we've done this year, all 3, and they're the only team that doesn't have 40 points yet. So that's a clear indication of being behind. You could think the New York Subliners are behind. The New York Subliners missed an entire event so far. Toronto is the only team that's that low in the statistics that has been to every event. The other thing this tells me, I feel bad for Optic. That can't be a pretty position to be sitting in where you haven't won a match. I mean, and Attach, I know you guys are, that 10 points is going to matter.
Oh, for sure. Every point matters. Every point matters. Yeah, I know. We know. So we made it clear to our team and everyone around us that we know every point matters. So.
Yeah, and there was this contention at the beginning after the first event or the Minnesota event. People were like, those points don't matter that much. Here's the thing. Those 20 points that London got, those 20 points that Paris got, the 20 points that Chicago got, the 20 points that Faze got, that's going to matter later when teams like you guys, teams like Seattle are fighting to one-up London and Paris. Yeah. It's going to matter that they got 20 points in Minnesota. That exhibition match, whatever you want to call it, and it sucks that you guys don't have a mid-season event to kind of recoup some of that. But the points are absolutely important. You think about it, if you're a Paris and you don't have the 20 points you got that weekend right now, you wouldn't be sitting in 3rd place with 50 points. Yeah. You'd have 30 points and you'd be all the way down with Dallas at 7th, and so the points matter. I'm happy that you're saying that, Attached, because when I saw some tweets about it early on, pro players being like, it doesn't matter these standings. It's like, if you're outside of our esport, how do you know who's in what position and who's done well without looking at standings and without looking at where everybody is? So surprises going into week 4. I don't really have any. To be blatantly honest, I thought Minnesota and Florida could do what they did. I'm going to say this, and this is a hot take or hard take, but I'm going to say this, that either you guys or Seattle is going to leap forward over the next couple of events, in my opinion, and London or Paris is going to fall. I'm just saying that, and maybe it's going to be Florida that falls down or something like that. But I think some of the teams that had a great start, they're going to have a tough midseason because other teams are wrecking. I said this about London and Paris immediately when I saw them come out so hot in Minnesota. I was like, oh. And then when what they did in London, I was like, well, people are going to look at their tendencies more. Wuskin started streaming now. Like, you're going to start seeing things. They don't stream scrims yet, but you're going to start seeing things, and people are going to pick up on things and take note. Okay, London is a good team. How do we prepare for them? And their midseason is going to be different, and then they're going to adjust, and they might have a great end of the season to make sure that they get into the league. That's kind of what I would say I learned from the current standings.
One thing I'll add just on your point right there, Kingdom, is that I really think that Seattle event, and I'm not just saying this because you're on here with us attached. I think of those next, 4 or 5 tournaments that are coming up, I think that's where you guys will make that jump if you make that jump. Because in your group, you have teams that you would consider beatable, right? Seattle, LAG, and London are in your group at that Seattle event. And you're kind of avoiding those teams like Chicago, like Paris, like Minnesota. They're all in Group B together. So I think just kind of jumping on what Kingdom was saying there, if there's somebody that's going to make that jump, I think that would be, just from looking at the matchups and the group breakdowns, that's where I would see that happen, is during that Seattle event.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, is Seattle right after LA or no? Is it Florida? Oh, no. It goes LA of an event we don't play at. I think
LA,
in
Dallas, Chicago,
yeah, we don't
Florida,
play
Seattle.
in Dallas, and then we play in Chicago. I think we have a tough schedule in Chicago too.
Yes, you do.
Yes,
you have a very tough bracket in Chicago.
Yeah, so just play well at London, gain confidence, play well in LA, gain confidence, and then that will be the perfect storm for us to go to 3 events in a row. Because if we do well at LA, we're gonna feel incredible going into the next 3 events, and those are the time where you really make a big jump in the standings, and that's what we got to do. Period.
Well, and you guys know Chicago is going to be a big event.
Oh, it's gonna be great! I can't wait. I've never been to Chicago. I'm ready.
Tickets already. Like,
Yeah.
Chicago's going to be huge, and I have a feeling. I was watching a Hex interview and him talk about, we're learning from all these other events, and we're just gonna. And he keeps talking about being a part of history. Like, come be a part of history and history and history. Like, the Huntsman is a brand new thing that we're building. He also mentioned Envoy as the legacy of their brand, which I thought was interesting for him to state that this early in having Envoy as, and they've been putting him up for a lot of the post interviews, not the ones right after matches, but the ones at the desk. And so I find it interesting that he's already talking about that. But
are you going to that event, Kingdom? Chicago one?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I would
pretty sure
to.
We'll be there. I'm going to be at that one.
Yeah, that honestly, like, if I want to go to any event, I'm going to Seattle, but if I want to go to any event, that's going to be the other event I want to go to. Like, I really want to go to Chicago. I just think it's going to be lit. Like, yeah. And if I'm one of the teams that's not going to Chicago and not playing, I probably would still go to the event just to be there and be a part of it. All right. So, we the storylines, we kind of talked a lot about most of them. We talked about the Twins. We talked about I put 0 GLA. We talked about them. I'll ask you, Attach. Faze is facing off against Florida in the first match of LA. It's a rematch. Is it another hot 3-0? Does Florida, because they seemed well prepared at this event, do they actually make a dent? Do they have a chance at beating them? Or was this honestly a good day for Florida? They played well. Let's not even. Pristini got the longest streak in CDL history so far.
Yeah.
But it's 13 kills in a row. That was the longest that we've seen yet.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that they're not a good team, but did we just not see the best Chicago this weekend, and some of the other teams they faced? and or is Florida going to actually do something against the almighty Faze?
I think it's good for Florida that they did end up playing Faze. Even though they lost, they play them first of the next tournament. So that's the last match they remember. They're going to go crazy studying that match. And I think they're going to have a way closer match because you have to remember, Faze is also coming off a win. And this is their first time winning a tournament because it's their first tournament they went to. So what if they show up, they don't practice as hard, which I don't think they will because the people around them, the players on that team, I know they're going to practice hard. But you never know. What if they don't play as well and Florida beats them because Florida is super preparing for that match and knows what to do against them now. So those are the things you got to think about. Yeah, that's what I think for that matchup.
Okay, that's a good way to think about it. And would you be able to speak to? I kind of had one of these storylines talking about Chicago losing full a little bit. Do you think that maybe some of the players on that team took their win and coasted a little bit?
Not that I recognize. I mean, not that I recognize. I feel like I don't know how much they scrimmed before this event, but I felt like they were playing a lot. Obviously, probably not as much as they wanted to, but if you take a day or two off, that's fine. And I felt like they were back on it. So I don't know exactly what happened with that. If they took more days off than I noticed, or they just had kind of an off weekend and stuff. They're having a little bit of internal issues with each other.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna take some questions from the chat. If you guys have some questions, throw them at me. One of the first ones we got was from Landon, and then we're gonna end the show soon, guys. Where is it? Oh, okay. So Landon asked, it's a question for you, Attach. What's more valuable, playing in the tournament and earning experience, or watching from home and taking notes on other teams?
That is a tough one. I would probably say playing in the tournament because that's when the real Call of Duty is being played. You can't replicate tournament gameplay anywhere else except for a tournament. So that's where you learn the most, I would say. Of course, if you are super on point, super on it, you can learn a lot from watching, but it's a lot easier to say something and talk about it than to actually do it. And so when you're getting those repetitions at the tournaments, that is extremely, extremely important. That's definitely the best practice without a doubt.
Do you think, just real quick to hop in there, do you think it's different by player also? Because my first glance at that question would be like, for somebody like Shotzi, I think being in that tournament is like you can't replace him getting more and more experience over time. But do you think there's a case where like there's a vet out there that like you, for example, or some of these other guys like Scump and Formal that have just been in tournaments so many times where maybe you can learn a little bit more just by being at home and watching? Like, does it depend on player, I guess?
Oh, yeah, I would say it depends on player and team. I think some teams can probably implement that better than others, and I'm not sure like which teams can do that. That's just kind of hard to say. That just depends on the players and the people around that team that take care of them. So that's a tough question to answer. The one thing I do think you can look at is actually the history of the Call of Duty League. Don't look at the open tournaments. Look at when the Call of Duty League was happening, who are the most consistent teams and consistent players, because this is a league again. There's a long season. So who is the people that are consistent over time rather than just having one hot weekend and then not doing too well at the other tournaments? So looking back in the old league standings, you can kind of probably see a pattern of players and teams that do well over competitions or long seasons like this.
Gotcha.
Attach, question from chat. What's the difference between LAN and online in this game?
Oh, I don't even know how to explain it. You kill really fast online, but it depends on the host and the location and all that stuff goes into it. The 12 hertz. But then you get to LAN, everyone kills fast if they hit their shots and hit their movement right. So LAN is much better to play on, of course. I love playing on LAN.
Yeah.
And that's when like the nerves and all the stuff come out in everyone. So you kind of see who's like more comfortable, who's not as comfortable. But yeah, LAN's just a whole experience. Because when you're scrimming online and we're playing online, no matter if you're streaming and have a couple hundred viewers, you aren't getting that real what Call of Duty is actually like experience. You're getting the online experience, and LAN is just, you can't even begin to explain what it's like to play on LAN. It's beautiful.
Right.
Is there I just keep adding on to the end of these questions because you just keep stimulating thoughts. But is there any merit to like boot camps in this, or can you even do that? Like are there league rules against it? So like if you're going to the next LAN, could you bring in a team that's not going to be at that tournament and then just boot camp against them before you head out?
I don't even know. I'm pretty sure boot camps are allowed. I haven't read anything about them being banned or anything like that. So I think a boot camp would be very helpful. But the thing is, we're not going to see because there hasn't been a boot camp yet, I feel like. So
Right.
one day there's definitely going to be a boot camp. Throughout the season, there has to be, unless it is, and I don't know that it's banned, but I'm pretty sure they're allowed. And once the first one happens, we will see if the teams that go there do better or do worse. So that's a good question. But I do think usually the teams that do go to a boot camp will most of the time do better.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's no substitute for practice in that environment.
Yeah, but you also have to be aware about who you're scrimming and playing at the boot camp because there's been times where teams have gone worse because they didn't play the top teams at boot camps. There's been times that worse teams have gone much better because they were playing top teams at boot camp. So it's a lot of things go into it.
Okay. What is the biggest challenge with the new format? That's another question from the chat.
The biggest challenge with the new format, I don't know. I honestly feel like the format's pretty solid.
Not playing at every event, and not having a losers after you get out of groups, like, does it feel like? So, are you saying it's just better?
Yeah, it feels overall better. I mean, it's probably weird to be in winner's bracket and then lose one game on Sunday and be out of the competition. That's probably the biggest change of the format, I would say. Because that would stink. Like, you're just feeling so good. You just 2-0, you fried on Saturday. You get to Sunday, you come out slow versus a team that just got a win, and then you're out. So it's like, oh, we fried on Saturday, but Sunday we came out slow and we didn't do well. That's probably the biggest change of the format and the most impactful thing.
Well, okay, so this is just a question because I was theorizing, how could we make, like, the people that make semifinals, how can we make that matter? You know what I'm saying? Like, because in my opinion, the same team that fights hard to get to semis and loses is the same amount of points, because you only get 20, right? If you lose in the semis and you don't make it to the grand final, but you also can get 20 points. Wait, is that right? I'm trying to think of how we can award the two teams that make it to that semifinal match, because you give 30 to second, but then third and fourth get the exact same amount, and then first gets 50. I was wondering if there was a way to be like 50, 40 for second, and then I guess you can't change the points. There's just no way to do it.
Yeah, there's not enough time in the day and at the tournaments to like play out a third, fourth match. So they can't fit any more matches into the schedule probably.
Everybody be jealous. Whoa, I almost dropped it on my computer. Be jealous of my pizza. You're in New York, so you have way better pizza than I do. So
definitely, without a doubt, New York has the best pizza.
In your opinion, should OG and Florida have replayed the Dom?
Nah, because Florida won it. Like, it said it was a draw, but everyone knew that Florida won it. They got the tick. Like, they should get the win. That would have been really bad if they made him replay it or gave them made him replay it. So I think it was the right call.
When they interviewed Pristini, he was like, we were just talking about the next map because we kind of knew they would give it to us. He was like, but
I'd be shocked if they didn't.
We would have stomped them.
Yeah.
I was like, well, of course. I mean, that's what I'd say too. Like, we're going to beat you guys. But he said they were nervous, because it was such a tense ending. Have you been in a match like that? Like, where you didn't know who was going to win down to the last second?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of matches like that. And like, it could be at the time when like you're playing and then you die. So you're kind of like in a kill cam, and then you don't know if your teammates got the trade or if the other team killed you, and you don't know who got the time because you're dead for that 1 or 2 seconds. So I've definitely been in a lot of intense matches like that. It's never fun when you're losing, but it's great when you clutch up and win.
So the last question I'm going to ask you after I ask you this question, because I asked Chance, the caster, we had him on last week, the changes that they've made, because you're a player. How has it impacted the game in general and how you guys play, I guess, and how you prepare, like the changes in the search time and in the Dom time? Has it made a big difference for your team at all?
I mean, we don't know because we didn't play in Atlanta with those rules. We can base it off scrims, and I just think it's better. One S&D should always be 130. 2 minutes just gives you way too much time, draws out the match way too long. Like it just makes you gotta strat, you gotta do it. Period. Like don't give these teams all this time. Like do it. That's everyone has the same amount of time, so it's not bad. And then the 5 minutes on Dom, I didn't even know it was 6 minutes at the start. I cannot believe it was 6 minutes. That's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So 5 minutes. Hasn't it always been 5 minutes on Dom, or am I crazy? It's
It
always
always was.
Yes.
They don't. Somebody
It was
said they
5.
don't know why they randomly added and made it a 12-minute game. That's
that's the weirdest thing ever. So I'm glad they put it back to normal because the series were taking way too long with 2-minute SNDs and then domination at 6 minutes. I'm pretty sure Minnesota there were some teams that would go like round 11 and it would be a 20-minute SND. If there's a 20-minute S&D, I am clicking off the stream. I'm going to do something else because I'm not watching Search and Destroy for that long. So I think it's better for the scheduling, the viewership, and all that. So because we got to get these matches quick. We got a lot of matches to be played. There's no reason to waste time playing an extra minute of Dom and then 20-minute S&Ds.
You made me think of something, and I don't remember what game it was, where there was the first time we went to 13 hills in a hard point. Don't remember what game it was this weekend, but we didn't talk about, which I guess I want to mention, we didn't talk about the overall event and production and all that kind of stuff. I'll say this for what it's worth. I've been impressed with the CDL. I love how fast the matches are up and available. Day 1 had 1 million views before we even went to day 2. Day 2, of course, is over 1 million as well. The VODs are getting a lot of good viewership. They're doing top 5s. They're starting to, they're treating it like a league, and the post content has been really good.
Yeah.
The videos and what you guys are coming out with as teams and what you're producing, I'm sure, just like any other professional league, the owners are required to release certain things, and it seems as if, I mean, there's something that was built in that, Optic Gaming of old, where telling stories about players mattered, and showing video footage of behind the scenes and doing interviews, it mattered. And it's now like full force, and all these teams are doing, like, I saw you guys did something on Doug today, right?
Yeah. They released the origin story of Doug Sensor Martin. So people just love seeing that because they want to know more about you, especially if they like you. They just want to know more about you and about your life. So, and then that gets them invested into Call of Duty, your team, maybe some other players. Like it's very beneficial to everyone when content is great.
It's a win-win, and it's how you make fans. I hope some of these cities realize that you can't just open a venue and tell people to show up because you think they like COD.
Nah.
But we all watch COD from home. You have to convince us to give us a reason to go to a venue and sit there in a chair and watch one game at a time of Call of Duty on a huge screen and be close to the players and all that, rather than sitting in the comfort of our homes and watching it on our monitors and being able to play at the same time. Like, you got to convince me to come out to an event. And it's one of the things I hit up Bob Morris about, the guy that runs operations for the Surge. I was like, hey, I'd love to run around Seattle and build a buzz for this team. It sounds like that's what they're doing, because I want to see a sold out crowd in Seattle. Like, we have Nintendo's here, Microsoft is here. Like, this is a this is a gaming hub secretly. I mean, Twitch and Amazon are here. Like, it's kind of like, why wouldn't we have a great event if we did a Call of Duty event when we came here? And I think we could have done a better job with the last one we had, even though it was a lot of fun seeing all you guys and getting to meet. All right, so the last question, and Icon, you can answer this one as well. I'll actually start with Icon, give you a chance to think about it. Attach Icon. Put on the spot.
Whatever, dude. Let's go.
Top 3 players in the game.
That's so tough. I feel like you have to go with, even though it's so funny when you're watching an Atlanta event and they're always giving props to each other. I love that they're just so I don't know, they're just not cocky at all. But I think I guess you'd have to go with Simp to begin with. I guess I would pick him. The AR role is really tough for me because Octane has been unbelievable, and Dens has had 2 really good tournaments in a row. So it's hard to pick between them. I would, at this game, at this title, probably Octane. And then after that, I don't. Dude, you could have gave me a little heads up.
Yeah, you're like, I don't care. Let's go. Come on, let's do it.
I don't know. Maybe Envoy. He's always in the right spots. He's always coming up clutch in hills. He's always the person like if you watch them scrim like I do, it seems like I waste like 20 hours a week watching those dudes scrim. But he's one that's always pointing out like where he's at, so where the enemy team's going to be spawning. Like he also brings that headiness, that intelligence to their team. So I don't know. I feel like you could have a combination of 25 different players. So I don't know. Those would be my three, I guess.
All right. What are your thoughts, Attach?
So the top three, it's definitely tough. I could easily put 3 Faze members in there because with Call of Duty, of course, it's awesome to have a great KD. But if you're not getting the wins, who cares? It's all about being impactful on the map, helping your team out and stuff that doesn't always show in KD. But if your team is winning, that means that multiple people are probably doing something really right on the team and to secure those wins. So I'd have to say, like Simp, of course, Abizi would be up there. Like everyone on Atlanta would have to be in the top 3. Any other answer is just kind of crazy if you don't put Atlanta there. So I can say I would also put Envoy because I think he has a very big impact on Chicago. Absolutely. I would also put RC's up there in the conversation, but right now I'd have to say the top 3 would have to be people on Atlanta. Like it could be anyone between Celium, Simp, Abizi, Priesta, and even Major at times. So it would just have to be Atlanta.
Okay. I'd say the only person I don't think you guys mentioned, of course, but they've been pretty consistent, is like GodRx. Wuskins has been pretty consistent. He consistently is in top 3 for overall KD, I think, everywhere he's played, every time he's played. And so he's playing really good. Envoy, like you said, makes a difference on the map. I think it's a hard thing to pick, and I like that people have said, like, I think it was Merc on one of their podcast episodes, he was like, we don't even need an MVP per event. He's like, we can do like a season MVP at the end. Because you really, like you said, it really matters how much teams are winning and what they're doing throughout the season. All right, guys. I don't know what's going on in the chat. I just see lots of faces from you.
A lot of my emotes in the chat. Let's go, Utah Mo. Utah Mo going crazy with my emotes in the chat. Love to see it.
Utah's the man. That guy, man. Thanks, Utah. He's my number 1 gifter right now.
Let's go, Utah, you beast. And we got my mom in the chat. Hey, Mom. I'll see you in a couple weeks or a week and a half, whatever it is.
It gets better. So thank you, Attach, for being on. Thank you, Icon, as always, for being on the show. Getting to talk to you guys about Call of Duty each week, it's a lot of fun. I love this podcast and what we're doing. Comments on YouTube have been really good. We are working on a name. Goalie and I going back and forth about it. The thing that we're working on right now, guys, is just being consistent, being here every week. We've got guests lined up for the next couple of weeks and all that, and continuing to bring in faces and new faces and just talking about COD each week. Because the cool thing about this the way the events are going, I don't know what we're going to do, Icon, when they have the back-to-backs, but right now we're able to go prediction show, recap, prediction, because there's something every other week.
Yeah.
When it's back-to-back, we're going to be like, okay, so let's recap this event and predict the next event. And
you're going to have to hurry up. That's what's going to happen.
Hey, this is a much shorter show than we've done in the past.
It is.
So yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for watching and everything. This will be on my YouTube channel maybe this evening or in the morning. Icons as well. Make sure to check out his content. Make sure to check out Attach, man. He's been uploading. If you play competitively, you want to play better just in general, he'll teach you how, and he always updates on his channel. He always updates when a weapon changes or the attachments change, and you should use it. Or I think, didn't you try one of the newer weapons?
Yeah, because there was a discussion about the DLC guns being allowed, so I wanted to test them out a little bit and see if they're valuable and competitive or viable. And people stopped really using them. No one really used a new weapon out of Atlanta besides M4 and MP5. So I'm going to have to say no. But it doesn't hurt to try because we've seen it in the past. There's been some guns that have won teams events. Like the OSA won Rise, the event in Vegas, because Jacinto had the event of his life. So it doesn't hurt to experiment and try out guns, because you never know what can happen. Potentially, it can win you the event. So
Put you
I just want to give it a shot, and then it's always good to just help people out. So if anyone goes to my channel, I think it's almost impossible for them not to improve or learn something new unless they're also a professional player. But even a professional player can pick things up from my channel. So no matter what, you will improve your Call of Duty skills if you want to, and implement the things I show in my videos. So I appreciate the shout out.
Dang, bro, you need to like quote that. That somebody clip that. That should be your elevator speech. If anybody ever asks, "Hey, what do you do on YouTube?" You said there is no way you will not grow if you watch my content. I love that. Like,
No, there isn't.
I mean, your content is good, but I love that you are confident in your own content, and it shows in what you make on YouTube, and you know the success. And you've learned, like many need to learn, that consistency is key.
Definitely, it definitely is.
Just keep uploading. Like, just consistency is so key. So thank you, Attach, mom of Attach. Thank you for always supporting your son, and just
love you, Mom.
It was nice meeting you in Seattle as well. And thank all of you guys. We will see you next Monday. We're gonna have a prediction show. I can't tell you guys who the guest is yet, but you'll see. Peace out, guys.
Peace out, everyone.
See you guys.
Thanks for watching.